What if intelligence wasn't something that we invented, but something we discovered? Not born of algorithms or the luck, but shaped by the same laws that govern the tides, gravity, and the light. So, welcome back, dear listeners, to another powerful episode of AI Biz. I'm your host, Avik, and today's episode sits right at the crossroads of physics, psychology, and the philosophy. And our guest today, please welcome Martin Lucas. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. How are you today?
Lovely. I'm doing great. Lovely. Nice to have you here on our show. And dear listeners, before we delve deep into the discussion, I would love to introduce you with Martin. So, dear listeners, Martin is not just an AI pioneer, but he is the inventor of deterministic AI, a new kind of intelligence based on the laws of physics rather than the probability. So, over the last decade, he has worked with more than 100 global brands, rewriting how we understand human behavior, technology, and the decision making. So, he's been called a behavioral scientist and inventor and a storyteller. And today, we will see like how all three come together to explore the physics of intelligence, the truth behind human choice, and what it really means to stay human in an age of smart machines. So, why do wait? Let's dive in and welcome to the show again.
Thank you.
Lovely. So, Martin, like you have worked with more than 100 global brands, decoding the how people make decisions. And after all that research and experimentation, what have you learned about how humans really choose that most marketers or the leaders completely miss?
That's a great question. I think that the main thing about how all of us make choices is that it's not as irrational as what we think, right? It often gets called irrational behavior, particularly in consumer choice, right? Um, the reality is that we're making a lot of rational choices in the brain. A lot of it is automatic, but we are following emotional patterns, right? It's disguised as logic, but it's emotional patterns. So the the more that we get things that match our meaning, trigger our memory, hit our moral alignment, that's the type of things that allows you to measure it. And to your question is like the vast majority of marketeers and brands are looking at statistical performance, right? But they're doing it more on a group level. So if I spend $100 and I get $1,000 of advertising and the open rates go up and the clicks go up, then I'm winning. Nobody's actually looking at how people think, how they feel, why they want product, why they want the next product. It's done on a very basic numerical level, not actually understand the logic of why people buy. I think the thing that surprised me over the decade is that starting this, I didn't come from the marketing space. I've done, behavioral stuff my entire life, but I hadn't been in the marketing so much. And I thought, like most of us think, that brands know loads about us, right? I think we all think that. You know what I mean? And the reality is they know very little about why we buy, why we care, what loyalty is, how it works in the brain, and how decision making operates. It's quite fascinating.
Mm, got it. Got it. So, um, and if our choices are not as rational as we think,
Yeah.
how can the leaders or the brands actually respect that irrationally, um, irrationality without manipulating it?
I think the biggest thing is emotional intelligence. It's the biggest part about how we think, how we read other people's faces, micro expressions, our feelings, how we socialize, how we operate within the world. And most of the world is operating based on the IQ side of things, right? So like I said, like the basics about how numbers operate. We're not looking at the emotional side about what is it that makes somebody engage? Why do they want something? How to do it? And it's all measurable. So you can still play the game of numbers, but nobody's actually looking and understand what emotional intelligence is, which I'm sure is a topic that comes up quite a lot for the conversations you have.
Mm. Okay. Okay. I mean, that's really fascinating because it turns the decision making from a kind of strategy problem into a human problem. And definitely, I mean, it's less about the persuasion and more about the resonance, understanding why people move and not just how, right? So, yeah. And Also, if you can share, like, what's the most surprising thing that you have discovered about the intelligence itself, like whether in humans, machines, or that mysterious space between the two?
Yeah, it's great. That's a really great question. Two things come to mind for me. One is that all decisions are based on energy. So we humans are looking to pull in energy all the time. That's the physics of decision making, right? So we're looking to see what's relevant to us, what we enjoy. Many of us humans are addicted to negative emotions as others are addicted to positive emotions, right? So we're constantly looking for those things to come in. So energy and how we manage energy into our system matters a lot. So if you think about how I'm speaking right now, when I raise my voice and when I'm excited about something, right? That's already changing the energy for you and people that are listening. It's bringing more excitement, anticipation. What's he going to say next? Whereas if I lower it and I'm talking more like that, right, and it gets a bit boring, you're not as interested in what I'm going to say. I could be saying exactly the same words. If you apply that to the world of advertising, marketing, think about how brands disengage you and they're speaking in a tone that doesn't resonate with you, right? So it doesn't match your energy. Right, that's a big part about that from the marketing side. Any thoughts or questions about that before I go into the machine side?
So Martin, like, I mean, if you just clarify a bit, so it will be helpful, I guess.
Mhm. The market side?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that if you think about brands that you really like give me an example. Like if you're out shopping, what's a brand that you love? Is it like are you a Nike person, Adidas, Jordan, Puma? Like what do you like in that side?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of shoes, definitely I love Puma, and in terms of jeans, if I have to see, Levi's. So yeah.
Okay, cool. So if we take Puma for example, is it the shoes that you like? Is there a particular model of shoes? Is it suede ones? Is it leather? What colors do you like?
So it's mostly about the looks, basically. I mean, the model, basically,
Mhm.
which it crafts. So yeah.
Yeah. So what Puma are often doing, right, is they're looking at what you bought, how often you bought. And
Mm.
they're doing that as a loyalty metric, right? And so if you stop buying after a certain amount of time, they'll start giving you discounts, they'll start giving you offers, they'll start outputting to you more with more sales stuff, right? What they're not looking at is the dimensions of the product. What is it that Avic is interested in? Why is he interested in it? And how can we show him more things that are interesting and like that type of thing, right? So we're not looking at the product side to understand what is the emotional connection you've got. Because your relationship with Puma, you didn't say it's about price, it's about discount, it's about when they give me discount shoes, right? That was the single thing that you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
But the vast majority, and I mean like 99% of market systems are built based on price and based on discount. And that's nothing to do with what your interests are. So what happens is that the tone changes. So it's not just like the example I'm giving, obviously, because we're on audio, when I'm raising my voice with excitement and lowering my voice, it's quite similar in terms of the energy that gets put to your system. People are reaching out to you with discounts about socks or discounts about shoes that you're not interested in or discounts about whatever, right? It's not discounts that are driving you, but we're in a discount hungry world. And Puma was actually within like 8 years of R&D, and they did something that I still find amazing where they called one of their sales a semi-annual sale. And you're like,
Mm.
what does that even mean? Like we've lost the ability to even anchor it around, a
Mm.
Black Friday or an Easter or an event or whatever, right? That we're just giving away discounts all the time without understanding what it is that you want from Puma.
Hmm. Got it. Yep. I mean, it's definitely, I'd say, the humbling to realize intelligence is not just about thinking faster, but it's all about feeling deeper. Maybe empathy is the last algorithm that we will ever truly need to write, right? So, yep. And
Yeah.
yeah, and also I'd love to ask you about the deterministic AI, like you have spent over a decade developing it. So, what was the moment that you realized that intelligence could be engineered by the physics instead of probability?
Yeah, so what you've got going on in AI at the moment, so any chatbot that you use is a stochastic system. Right? So that means that it's trying to find the most likely answer for you based on a huge amount of training data. So it's basically a text selection system. So this idea that the intelligence part of artificial intelligence is false, right? So it's trying to give you the correct answer where it doesn't know, and it's known as the 30% problem. Where it doesn't know, it's got a hallucination fit setting. That's literally what it's called in all AI. And 30% of everything that you put into a chat LLM, large
Mm,
language model like OpenAI, Perplexity, all of them, right? The large language
mm,
models. 30% of what you get back would be different every single time. So it basically knows roughly what the answer is that you're looking for, gives you it, and then makes up the rest, right? With its best
yeah.
guess, right? So it's a probability model. What I did with deterministic AI was to
Mm,
say, well, if we could understand how decision making works within the brain, what
mm,
all the factors are, your emotional intelligence, your context when you're interested, your time of day when you're interested in something, lots of practical stuff, lots of emotional stuff. If you could harvest all that together, I called it decision science, and that allowed us to build decision physics. You put those two together, and you've got deterministic AI. What does that actually mean? It means that it can think. So rather than it going for a text answer, it's actually thinking about what is your question, what stage are you at, what you're trying to accomplish, what is it that you want, what's your emotional context, where are you at, and then it meets you with an answer. So it's operating based on knowledge and holding knowledge. So it's more cognitive intelligence rather than artificial intelligence. So I think this idea of artificial intelligence has just tricked us in the modern world because it's all text based selection, right? That's what the
mm,
stochastic models are. And I wanted to say, right, if I'm going to work for Puma and we're going to understand Avic and what he's interested in, what are all the factors that need to go into it? And that's what deterministic AI allows you to do. So you can serve an individual based on the things that interest them. Isn't that a better world, I think?
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, like for those who are listening, right? So, for the first time, this one. So, how do you explain it uh, for them?
So what the deterministic side. So um the what I was saying earlier was that the how we repeat things, there's a pattern to how we do things, right? It manifests itself in different ways, but the average human makes 36,000 decisions a day, right? And 98.98% of those decisions happen unconsciously. And the reason being is that if we had to think about how to button a shirt, how to make a cup of coffee, we'd never be able to leave our house, right? Because we wouldn't be able to remember it. So all those things that go into your system, who you are, your culture, what you're interested in, the people that you're interested in, the products that you're interested in, the brands you're interested in, the products within those brands, like what we talked about with Puma, right? All of that starts to gather forward into what I've called decision science, right? If we can understand how to measure all those different variables, I can understand what it is that different people want in different scenarios and how to serve them that. So you're basically matching their energy, the energy of a decision. What is the factors that go into it? What are those 36,000 decisions you're making? What are the factors of it? If you can understand that, mega complex, but that's the human brain, right? It's super complex. So we don't want the text-based answer based on general guesses. We want to understand what it is that people want and how to serve them with that, you know?
Hmm, exactly. Wow. So, and also like the myths holding about the humanity, right? Like you have said before that one of the biggest myths about AI is holding humanity back. So, what's that myth? I mean, what would happen if we finally let it go?
Yeah, it's a great thing. I mean, the challenge is that AI as we know it today, artificial intelligence, operates with one of the biggest gaps because it's built by humans and it's one of the biggest gaps that they don't understand, right? Which is that per the 36,000 decisions we make a day, the brain operates based on assumption, right? Because it can't stop and think about every single thing that it's doing, right? So assumptive bias happens all the time. The brain has to operate with absolute efficiency, right? So it burns energy and calories for us to consciously think about it. So that's why the vast majority of our decisions happen unconsciously. So we have to make assumptions all the time. If we're making assumptions, it doesn't mean that we're always aware of the things that have come in, right? So if somebody told you that, I don't know, you're 5 years old and the leaves on a particular type of tree are made from bogies, right? They're made from snot of the nose, right? And you never come across that tree for 25 years. You could still be rejecting that tree, right? I don't like that type of tree without being able to articulate why. You don't remember what happened when you were 5, right? And that point is when we're not aware of ourselves and we're not aware of the assumptions that we make, and that's why it's called assumptive bias, then the people, the software engineers that built artificial intelligence, they don't know that they're putting their own assumptive bias, their own assumptive thinking into artificial intelligence. So when we think about when you're using a chatbot, it has to make assumptions. That's what the text-based selection is doing. It's making assumptions about who you are, what you want. It's not thinking about your emotional context. It's not thinking about what you're trying to solve. It's just trying to find you a answer. And because it gives you an answer that soothes your ego and that tells you that you're correct, we've created an echo chamber, right? So this myth of artificial intelligence is false because it's not intelligence. It's giving you the best answer that you want based on your scenario. It's not based on who you are as a person, right? That's the myth of mine.
Yeah, got it. Okay. And like you have also been called a behavioral scientist, an inventor, the philosopher, even a storyteller. So when you step on stage or into the interviews like this, so who do you feel you are first?
That's a fantastic question.
Mhm.
If I go back 10.5 years, where I began to understand how the brain makes decisions and thinks, I started on two things, right? My two big problem statements were my skill set's mathematical ones, grounded in problem solving. My two questions were, what is emotional intelligence? Because I felt that was the biggest anchor to start unpicking how the brain makes decisions. And the other part was philosophy of the mind, which I felt if you really examine the ancient Greek philosophy, a lot of it is about the mathematics of thought, right? So I think at the end of the day, like as much as I do a lot of kind of nerdy, geeky math, right? I'm constantly working on the philosophy of mind. What don't I know? What does my system not know? What does my team not know? How can we be better at what we do? How can we add more intelligence? How can we increase that awareness? Because I think that it's all well you could say you've built deterministic AI, but you've got to determine what goes into that system. And whilst we've got, an unlimited number of calculations and it runs into trillions, I still think there's an opportunity to raise your awareness, right? Because I think that's the biggest challenge that any human's working on. So I can't stand here 10.5 years later and say I've figured that out, because if I had, then, you know, I'd be floating on the moon. I think you've always got to keep pushing, whether it's self, business, or otherwise. But to answer your question, I think it's philosophy is at the heart of what I do, philosophy of the mind.
Exactly. Got it. Mhm. And if you could leave listeners with one idea about the intelligence, creativity, or humanity that changes how they see the world today, then what would it be?
I think the biggest thing is that creativity is such a multi-dimensional thing. And this idea of artificial intelligence and this AI bubble and this overinvestment and overselling of it has got people confused and almost fearing that they're going to lose access to creativity and that creativity is not going to matter. All that's happening is the same thing that happens once every generation, right? In the tools change. What goes into your hand changes. What you're doing with your skills changes. But human creativity will never change in terms of its need. So that's the thing is like the more that you can harness your creativity, and as I talk about it from a psychology point of view, understand your superpower. The more we can double down on our superpower, the more that we can win. And I've actually found in my studies, and that's over 120 million tests and all kinds of different things, found in my studies that people that are on the spectrum, people with ADHD, different types of thinking, different types of diversity, tend to have the most creative ways of thinking about different things. And that's nigh on impossible for a machine to ever replicate. And my final message about that is that artificial intelligence is not that. It's not intelligence. It may be running things quicker, it may be doing things efficiently, but it's not replacing the human thought because it's all based on the past. It's based on training data of what happened yesterday, right? It's not based on ideas of what's going to happen tomorrow.
Hmm.
And that's where the humans are always going to rise and always going to win.
Yeah, exactly. That's such a profound reminder. And Martin, this has been such a mind bending, heart opening conversation. And thank you so much for showing us that the future of intelligence is not just about creating the machines that think like us, it's all about understanding why we think the way we do. So,
Awesome. You're welcome.
for yeah, exactly. For all the listeners, if this episode stirred your curiosity, don't rush to learn AI. Start by learning yourself. Notice your patterns, your impulses, your emotional algorithms, because the physics of intelligence might be written in code, but the poetry of it is written in you. So, follow Martin Lucas and his work at Gap in the Matrix and dive into the fascinating world of deterministic AI, where physics meets philosophy and data meets the heart. And Martin, if someone wants to connect with you, what would be the great medium to connect?
I write on Medium. You mentioned Medium. I write on Medium. They can come on LinkedIn. I also offer people free mentoring, free tests of our system and things like that as well. So I very much believe in pay it forward. So Martin Lucas on Medium or LinkedIn.
Amazing. Lovely. Great. So, dear listeners, I'll put all the links into the show notes for your easy reference. And with this hope, until next time, stay curious, stay conscious, and never stop exploring the science of what makes us human. So, thank you so much.